Good morning, gentlemen, and welcome to the Student Government Association Crown Forum. It is indeed my pleasure to welcome you to this Crown Forum where we celebrate and give the Student Government Association their oath of office for the 2012-2013 academic year. At this time, we will be following the program as it is printed. And I introduce you to Mr. Martavius Leonard, who will deliver the prayer, our Student Government Association Executive Secretary. Mr. Leonard.
May we please assume the posture of prayer. Most gracious and eternal God, we come to you with bowed heads and humble hearts, first to give you thanks for the many blessings you have bestowed upon us. We thank you for the opportunity to gather in this sacred place. We thank you for being our ultimate power source. Enable us to be still and know that you are God. You are the one who answers out of the whirlwind of everyday life and breathes in us as to strengthen, comfort, and guide us in the midst of the storm. Today we ask that your truth touch not just our intellects, but also our deeper yearnings of heart and soul. We bring with us our daily concerns as well as our more eternal questions in hopes that you shed light upon our everyday walk. And God, speak to us this hour that we might become makers of your peace in our homes, our communities, and in our world. It is in your name we pray. Amen.
Good morning. The SGA Crown Forum is a once-a-year occasion where we recognize the work and achievements of our elected and appointed officials, and is one of the few school-sanctioned events where the SGA has a chance to map out the course of the academic year and share some of our goals for the student body. The ability of the SGA to lay out its unified vision before this assembly provides a level of legitimacy and significance to our work and causes. Today, we also gather to recommit ourselves to the work of student advocacy as we move forward. For we must never forget what the S stands for in SGA. Brothers, the work of advocacy is not easy, but it is right. No matter what obstacles lay before us, our goal and responsibility is to make sure that the voice and interests of the student body are heard at every level of decision-making at this institution. I am pleased that we have with us today a dynamic leader, advocate, and stateswoman, Representative Alicia Thomas Morgan, who will speak before us today. If you remember nothing else, remember that the future is calling, and with your continued support and engagement, we will answer. We thank each of you for your participation in today's events. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your occasion.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Temi Serena-Cotiero. I'm a junior history major from Brooklyn, New York, and I currently serve as the SGA Vice President for this year. I have the pleasure of introducing you to the members of our SGA Executive Board, as well as the SGA Senate. Gentlemen of the platform, as I introduce you, please stand. Mr. Nathan Jones, Treasurer. Mr. Martavius Leonard, Executive Secretary. Mr. Michael J. Butler, Chief of Staff. Mr. Tevin Jones, Executive Director. Mr. Boris Dobrievich, Senior Board Trustee. Mr. Michael Gatewood, Junior Board Trustee. Mr. Adam Starks, Secretary of Academic Affairs. Mr. Anthony Simonton, Attorney General. Mr. Deshaun Bennett, Chief Justice. Mr. Denarius Frazier, Secretary of Student Services. Mr. Antoine Harris, Secretary of Student Services. Okay, Mr. Stephen Green, Election Commissioner. And Mr. Trayvon McKay, Secretary of IT. Okay. We also have the class presidents, Mr. Michael Daniels Fleming, Senior Class President, Mr. Jarvis Gray, Junior Class President, and Mr. Charles Brooks, Sophomore Class President. This is your SGA. As well, the members of the 83rd session of the SGA Senate are seated in the first two rows. Would you please stand as well? Thank you.
Good morning. Would ask that the gentlemen in the audience, the senators, please remain standing along with the SGA board members. At this time, I will provide the oath for this year. My name is Kevin Booker. I'm the Associate Dean of the Office of Student Life. And at this time, gentlemen, I would like you to repeat after me. I state your name. As duly elected, state your position. Of the Morehouse College Student Government Association. Do solemnly swear that I will faithfully fulfill the duties of this office as provided in the Constitution and its bylaws. I will strive to establish representative government, maintain academic freedom, and defend student rights. I will work toward the strengthening of the cooperation between the Student Government Association and the college's administration, faculty, and staff, and work toward bettering my leadership qualities, scholastic achievement, and the greater college community. With these thoughts in mind, I shall set as my final goal the betterment of Morehouse College. I so affirm. You may be seated, gentlemen. Gentlemen, I've said before in previous Crown Forums, while some of you have applauded politely some of the SGA officers who've just stood before you, the mantle, the responsibility they just assumed is quite great. It's easy for us as individuals to sit back and talk about what they're not doing without reflecting about all the great things that they are doing. And they're doing a great job representing you, making sure that your voice is being heard when they're in meetings with the administration, the Board of Trustees, and other meetings. Gentlemen, while you've been polite in your affirmation so far, I ask that you be a little kinder. Gentlemen, would you please stand again for me? Would you give these gentlemen a round of applause they deserve? Thank you. Thank you. Much better, much better. Awesome responsibility these gentlemen have assumed. Thank you. Folks, it is my pleasure this time to introduce a young man who I've come to grow a great deal of respect for. I've tell the one story that I'll tell as I introduce your SGA president, our SGA president, Mr. Andre Washington. Ladies and gentlemen, there is an organization called NASAP. NASAP, the National Association for Student Affairs Professionals. NASAP is an organization dedicated to help African American professionals who are in student affairs, principally those who are working at historically black colleges, but also those who are working at predominantly white institutions. NASAP. We're very privileged that our own Associate Vice President, Dean of Men and Advising Services, Mr. Renardo Hall, is one of the longtime members and former president of this organization. During his time, his tenure there, Dean Hall had the opportunity to create what is now the Student Leadership Institute, the NASAP Student Leadership Institute, an institute at which 50 to 60 HBCUs send their SGA executive boards, their kings and queens and other elected officials to. A week of activities to really join in and get to know each other and learn what it really means to be an effective SGA officer. Well, during that Student Leadership Institute, the presidents of all those institutions that have gathered, they elect what we call the leader amongst leaders. That is, of these 55, 60 SGA presidents, who will they be looking to really galvanize the group from throughout the country as it relates to historically black colleges and universities? Well, ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to let you know that our very own SGA president, Mr. Andre Washington, was selected as the leader amongst leaders at that Student Leadership Conference. And so, with that, since we have the baddest SGA president in HBCU land, ladies and gentlemen, it's my introduction to introduce him, Mr. Andre Washington, to bring you the vision for the 2012-2013 awe-inspiring SGA, Mr. Andre Washington.
You know, if I'm the baddest SGA president, it's because I have the most supportive faculty and staff here. Let's give a round of applause for our faculty and staff and acknowledge the president, President Franklin, and Dr. Watson, and other administrators here. They make governing a pleasure to do, an enjoyable experience. I would be remiss if I stood here and didn't give honor to God, who is the reason that I have a vision, the reason that I have breath, and the reason that I'm able to have the wisdom to lead you dynamic brothers, because y'all a smart group, and I need some help when it comes to leading. That stated, I also would like to recognize Miss Maroon and White, in her absence, who is currently competing at a pageant queen competition here in the city of Atlanta. We'll be going to support her at the end of this week. And I also encourage you brothers to go to morehousesga.info, our website, your student activities website, and click the link and vote for Miss Maroon and White as she competes for $15,000 in the Verizon Wireless Ultimate Ring Competition. So take out your smartphones, it is smartphone accessible, and vote for your queen, the baddest queen in all of the United States of America. Can we get a round of applause for Miss Maroon and White at court? We are often told the greats of how Julian Bond and Lonnie King helped start the Atlanta student movement. We're told of how Maynard Jackson was Atlanta and how Dr. King reshaped the nation and changed the world. We're constantly told of what was, what happened, how great it was, how transcendent we were. I'm here to let you know that a great day has come to Morehouse College. A great day has come to Morehouse College because, brothers, you're here. We're not asking to be great with permission from men who have already been buried, tombstones engraved, their names written on the history books. We're great because we're here. A great day has come to Morehouse College. This year, the SGA and the student body has taken firm grasp of our identity and said, this is the year of ownership. This is the year that we take ownership of who we are, what we're going to do, and what we will accomplish. We are the ones that welcome this moment and say, here in this present, the future has arrived. We are the folks that are in painful times in the history of this country and say, a new birth has occurred. OWN stands for opportunities, wisdom, and networking. Opportunities. We're focusing on 100% campus registration with the Election Commission, to date registering 400 brothers on this campus. We've expanded the SGA scholarship from $20,000 to $30,000. We have a consolidated student activities calendar to promote all on-campus events, not just SGA, but every event that's on campus. We want the RSOs, registered student organizations, to come to your SGA and have us provide the communication that's necessary so you don't have to hear about it on Twitter, or search for it on a billboard, or hear about it word of mouth. You can go to one consolidated website to know what's going on your campus. Wisdom. We reached out and worked with the Atlanta City Council, and we've increased the presence of Atlanta Police Department in this area. We've got renewed lights on Lowry Street. We make sure that your campus safety is our priority. We're starting the Finish in 4 initiative, where we'll be advising brothers on how to finish in 4 years. Not 5, not 6, but in 4 years. We've taken ownership of the internet, and we've made TigerNet mobile and iPad accessible. We've got Tiger Mobile that's run by our student leader that's updated, and we'll have the iOS 6 operating system updated within the next coming months. Networking. In the spring, we'll have a student entrepreneurship fair because we believe that innovation and greatness isn't limited to when you graduate. You can be a student and own your brand and own your company and own your identity. We tip our hats to our student entrepreneurs, and we say in the spring, we're going to celebrate you and highlight you, and we're going to support your business. We're going to have a scholar spotlight because it isn't just great to be great in business, but we're the intellectual vanguard of the community. We represent the best in academic here at Morehouse College. So in the coming weeks, we'll spotlight scholars who have accomplished in academics, and we'll reach out to divisional deans and say, what men of Morehouse have been doing great things in the classroom and outside the classroom, doing great service-based initiatives. We'll start partnering with campus police, having community officers, so the first time you see campus police won't be when they're coming to search your stuff or coming with a complaint, but when they're coming to extend a hand to build a relationship with you and tell you that they want to have a partnership with you, and your protection and your safety is their first priority. And when it isn't, we'll be sure to go in and talk to them and say that it should be, and we need you to do the investigation necessary to address the concerns of the student body. So this year, you gentlemen, don't look at the stage and see these gentlemen and say they have all the work to do. We've come a long way. We've made a lot of advances, but we need you to stand up. We need you to get registered to vote. We need you to actively participate in the process. We need you to be in the service-based initiative. We need you to stand up and take ownership of campus safety. We need you to stand up and take ownership of academic success. Yes, I got elected as a president of the presidents. I got nominated as a leader of the leaders. That's because I go to school full of the leader of the leaders. I go to school full of men that are bold enough to set the example, transcend the standard. I go to school full of brothers who represent the best in HBCUs, in PWIs, in Ivy Leagues, and all of academia. Let there be any question about the intellectual capacity of my brothers, and I'll answer them. I'll answer them with our GPAs. I'll answer them with our travels abroad. I'll answer them with our well-readness and our well-spoken nature. I will answer them with you. It's not limited to the people on this stage, brothers, but you are the answer to this destiny. You are the intellectual answer to questions. You are the dialogue between the thesis and the antithesis. You are the synthesis of this generation. So stand up, you men of the 21st century, and say, when the world has questions, they come and they knock on Morehouse's door, and she answers and say, I will send my sons for you. I'll send my sons to go far and wide. I'll send my sons in the morning. I'll send my sons and they'll come early. They'll stay all day and they'll leave late. I'll send my sons and they'll die. But most of all, they'll live and they'll make changes. So on today, brothers, while you sit there and you stare and you look into my eyes, I want you to understand that the onus is not on the people on the stage, but the onus belongs to you. So brothers, rise up and take ownership of your destiny. This is the vision of the Student Government and Association and the student body of Morehouse College.
All right. I didn't know you had a little preaching in him as well. Amen. Great job, Henri. At this time, we have a selection by Mr. Clinton James, accompanied by pianist Alex Moore.
There is a mighty spirit across the sky. He's calling out the weary to green pastures. Come and lie. There is a mighty Spirit crossing barren land. He's sowing love unceasing. Fresh fruit springs from the sand. Harvest time is coming. The reaper's in his hand. Go tell everybody that love is his command. There is a mighty Spirit shining out across the sky. He's sowing love unceasing to green pastures. Come and lie. There is a mighty Spirit crossing barren land. He's sowing love unceasing. Fresh fruit springs from the sand. Harvest time is coming. The reaper's in his hand. Go tell everybody that love is his command. Oh, that love is his command.
Great job indeed. Thank you, Brother James, Brother Moore. I like the spirit that is building in this place now. Great spirit. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to introduce you. 2 years ago, Travis Randall, as SGA president, fought to have a closer relationship between the Student Government Association and the college administration. And of course, he fought to have the positions of secretaries as part of the SGA administration. And I'm glad to see that the General Assembly affirmed that and that we now have a secretary for each major division here at the college. So for academic affairs, for campus operations, for institution advancement, for student services, we now have a secretary. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to introduce you to the Secretary of Student Services, whom I had the opportunity to sit with on this past week, with each of us to share our visions for how we plan to work closely together during this academic year. To introduce our speaker, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Denarius Frazier, SGA Secretary of Student Services.
Good morning, brothers. It is with great pleasure
that I present to you a new age Renaissance woman. She made history at the age of 23 by becoming the first African American to represent Cobb County in the Georgia House of Representatives, District 39. She is now serving in her 5th term and remains one of the youngest and most vocal female members of the entire Georgia General Assembly. An author, powerful political voice, inspirational speaker, and empowering trainer. She is poised to be one of the most influential women of the 21st century. In her 2010 novel, No Apologies, Powerful Lessons in Life, Love, and Politics, she reminds us that it's so easy to sit back and watch instead of speak up when you see wrong. We have good reasons to. Often the people who are courageous enough to speak up are faced with great opposition and consequences. She has been featured in national publications and media outlets, including Ebony Magazine's Nation's 30 Leaders Who Are Under 30, AOL Black Voices, America's Young Civil Rights Heroes, and Essence Magazine's 15 Women of the New Power Generation. She is a graduate of Spelman College, in which she earned a Bachelor of Arts degree in both sociology and drama. She is also a proud member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, in which she serves her community. In addition, she serves on several boards in the Metro Atlanta area. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming State Representative Mrs. Alicia Thomas Morgan.
Thank you. Good morning, Morehouse brothers. I first have to say thank you for this incredible opportunity to come before you this morning. I don't take it lightly by any stretch of the imagination to be in this sacred place at this sacred moment. I have to thank President Franklin for this invitation and to your members of student government and the platform here for this invitation. And because I have a little bit of time, I'm going to cut out all of the pleasantries and get right to what it is I believe I've been called to say to you this morning. I have to, of course, acknowledge not a Morehouse man, but a Renaissance man in his own right, my husband, David Morgan, who is here with me this morning. Y'all give a shout out to my boo. I have to say that the last time I was on this stage for a Morehouse event, it was me competing in the Miss Maroon and White pageant. Y'all would have voted for me, huh? And I didn't win, but I realized that in all of God's doings, that he had another plan for me to stand on this stage for another reason. And I believe that that reason is because the call for leadership has never been more important for this generation. And while I'm just a few years older than you, I believe that we are a part of the same generation in which we are no longer facing dogs and water hoses and police batons. But as one of my mentors reminds me often, we are no longer fighting to sit at lunch counters. Instead, we are fighting to make sure that the children can read the menu. We may not be working to pass the Voting Rights Act, but we are absolutely fighting to beat back so-called voter ID laws. Just this past legislative session, I worked for what was the 3rd year to try to allow you as Morehouse College students and others who attend private colleges to use your student ID to vote. And once again was successful in the House, but unsuccessful in the Senate. But what you have to know is that it wasn't just Republicans who voted against it. It wasn't just white folks who voted against it, but it was Democrats and Republicans, blacks and whites. And so, no, we're not fighting for access, we're fighting to keep it. And in our state, we have laws that allow 13 to 16-year-olds to be treated and tried as adults and put in adult prison. Again, a law passed not by just Republicans or just white folks, but Democrats and Republicans, black folks and white folks. And finally, I cannot ever speak to anybody and not talk about education. Because while you enjoy this sea of African American and black male academia, our youngest brothers are struggling across this country. Because on average, African American 12th grade students read at the same level as white 8th grade students. The 1 million black male students enrolled in the New York, Florida, and Georgia public schools are twice as likely not to graduate with their class. And in the meantime, in Chicago, one of the most dangerous cities for black males, teachers who are said to be the highest paid in the country, with one of the shortest school days, go on strike for almost 2 weeks, leaving many of those children at home to fend for themselves. And in Georgia, civil rights groups, with the exception of NAACP, are lining up to oppose a charter school amendment to appear on this November's ballot that would allow more parents to have access to more public school options. Again, Democrats and Republicans alike, who offer very few solutions on their own to address the crisis in public education, yet vehemently fight a solution that is working for black, brown, and low-income students in Georgia and across the country. And so I offer you today that the political lines have become blurred. The fights aren't the same as they used to be, but they are just as critical. And the only way I believe that we can begin addressing these concerns in our community is for this, our generation, to stand up and to lead. And I acknowledge that not everybody in our generation will rise to this challenge. What I know is that no matter how much the civil rights movement is romanticized, everybody didn't march with Dr. King. Some folks were scared. Some folks' parents didn't let them. Others became lulled by the status quo, accepting what was the law, and they lacked the courage or even the belief that things could become better. And so for you, the challenge is different. You come from a legacy of great men who weren't a part of the status quo. They toiled and sacrificed so that we and you could be. Today, we stand on their shoulders because we are young people who are not leaders of tomorrow, but have the responsibility to lead today. And so the call to leadership will not be easy. Not everybody will understand. Some will encourage you to focus on making money first and worry about the people later. Others will say, I've got mine, let them get theirs. And I came across a great quote by Texas preacher Max Lucado that says, a man who wants to lead the orchestra must turn his back on the crowd. And so the crowd may not get us equal rights or keep many of us from going to prison. The crowd may not be able to put a dent in what is the crisis in public education. But you, my Morehouse brothers, are not the crowd. You are called to lead the orchestra. And our instruments are on standby, and this country is waiting for the countdown. I have to tell you the story of how I became Cobb County's first African-American state representative. You see, I graduated from Spelman in 2000 and decided that I would move to a place called Cobb County. And it didn't look like this room, and the people who I would tell that I was going to run for state representative, they said, oh, that is so cute. They said, that's going to be a nice experience for you, because they did not think that it was impossible, that it was possible. And so I set out and put my little campaign team together and started knocking on doors and doing what you do to win campaigns. And so the person who was my campaign manager decided one day that he was going to drop me and put somebody else in the race with the same last name. And then he was going to file a residency challenge against me. And so I had a decision to make. Was I going to allow this to stop me from getting to my destiny, or was I going to continue to move? And so I decided to continue to move. And so we went to court and we presented our case, and we didn't get the decision that day. And so I had to continue to work hard with this thing hanging over my head, but I knew that I had to keep my eyes on the prize. And so finally I got a call from the local newspaper. They wanted to know, how did I feel now that I was no longer in the race? We lost. And the tears rolled down my eyes, and I called my boyfriend at the time, who's now my husband, and we went to Red Lobster because that's my favorite restaurant. Happy to say I got to go to Red Lobster. But I started getting all the calls from my so-called mentors and friends who were telling me, why don't you wait? Because if you appeal this case and you lose, that will be the end of your political career. But what I learned at the tender age of 22, that it wasn't about waiting for somebody else to do it, for another time, for enough degrees on the wall, or all the things we have to tell ourselves that we need to wait for. Because when there's work to be done in our communities, we cannot wait for somebody else to do it when we are the ones who have been called. And so the story goes, we appealed the case, and eventually we went before another judge, and that judge overturned the decision. And on August 20th, 2002, when people said my skin was too dark, my age too young, my thoughts too liberal, who was this black girl from Miami whose father never even graduated from high school? How could I stand and run against two men who were twice my age? So when all of the odds were stacked against me and everybody said that it couldn't be done, me and my Morehouse student campaign manager walked the district and did the work that needed to be done, and I became Cobb County's first African-American state representative with 65% of the vote on that day. Thank you. And so I share that story with you because sometimes we don't realize that the vision that we have in our minds, what makes us leaders is that you have a vision that other people cannot see. You are able to see things that are possible that other people think are utterly impossible. And so I leave you with just a few lessons in leadership. The first is by Harold McCallendon, who says, "Do not follow where the path may lead. Go instead where there is no path and leave a trail." And so as I mentioned, sometimes the political lines and the racial lines get blurred. And while we learn from the lessons of our forefathers, we have to decide that in this generation, we're not going to keep voting Democrat because somebody told us to. We're not going to keep believing what everybody says because they look like us. But we believe in our own values and what it is that calls us to leadership. And even when the path is difficult and seems unseen, that you can still walk with one foot in front of the other and create your own path and leave a trail behind. The second lesson from Isaac Newton is that if I have seen farther than others, it is because I was standing on the shoulders of giants. We are standing on the shoulders of giants who have come before us. Some who have died, others who have risked their safety and freedom, even their good-paying jobs. And you, my brother, stand on the shoulders of Morehouse men who are making a difference across this country, not 50 years ago, but today, especially in the areas of education and serving the community. Donald Hint, class of 70, the founder of Friendship Charter Schools. James Shelton, class of 89, the United States Assistant Secretary of Education. Milton Little, class of 74, the president of the United Way Atlanta. Courtney English, a recent graduate, member of the Atlanta Board of Education. And so I leave you with my favorite quote. It's by Dr. Benjamin E. Mays, and I say it everywhere that I go. I think y'all know him. And that quote says that every person was born into this world to do something distinctive and something unique. And if he or she does not do it, it will never be done. And so to every Renaissance man in this chapel, I've stopped by this morning to remind you that you were born to do something great. You were born to lead and turn your back on the crowd and move forward to do the things that you have been called to do. And it won't be easy, and everybody's not going to go with you. But you take with you the legacy of this great institution, the men who have come before you, yes, to create a path, but for you to create your own. Lead and continue this great legacy, for you must be steadfast, honest, true to old Morehouse and her ideals in all of the things that you do. Lead because our community needs you. Lead because those black boys need somebody to look up to. Lead because that is what God has had placed in our lives. Lead because our communities deserve better. Lead because it's not about Democrat or Republican. Lead because that is what Benjamin Mays reminds us that you were born to do. And brothers, if you don't do it, it'll never be done.
Thank you, State Representative Morgan, for those inspiring words. Gentlemen, while she talked about the fact that last time she was on the stage, it was as competing as this Miss Maroon and White, I'm not sure if after you heard the words that you checked out the attire that she's wearing. She's representing the brothers of the house quite well in her maroon. Standing side by side like our Spelman sisters always do. Always do. Thank you, Sister Morgan. Gentlemen, quick announcements. At this time, when you leave the auditorium and return to the foyer, there's two things I want to make note of. First, there's the voter registration that the Student Government Association has made available for you in the lobby, so we encourage those of you who have yet to get registered to vote to stop by those tables to get registered to vote. Second, Ms. Morgan has her book also for sale. For those of you who want to take a look at her first book, No Apologies, Powerful Lessons in Life, Love, and Politics. We also ask that you stop by that table and purchase her first book. Gentlemen, at this time, if we would all stand as we've seen the college hymn.